The snow had started falling before sunrise, thick, fast, and relentless. It blanketed the rural Alabama roadways with an icy hush, the kind of silence that only comes before trouble. 80-year-old Mabel Jefferson stood at her window, sipping from a chipped porcelain mug filled with strong black coffee. Her old farmhouse groaned under the weight of the snow on its roof, but she didn't complain. The creaks and moans were familiar to her, like old friends that reminded her she was still alive, still standing. Her gnarled hands, speckled with time, reached for the knitted shawl draped over her rocking chair. She wrapped it around her shoulders, feeling its warmth as much as the memory of her late sister who made it. Outside, visibility was down to nearly nothing, just a wall of white swallowing the world. Mabel was used to solitude, but there was something eerie about this storm. It wasn't just nature, it felt like fate was spinning something big in the wings. She was about to turn on the radio for updates when she heard it, faint at first, almost swallowed by the wind. Then clearer. A honk. Another. Then, silence. Mabel rushed to the door, struggling against the howling gusts as she pushed it open. She squinted through the snow and saw the faint outline of a car, a white SUV, buried half in a ditch about 100 yards from her front yard. Her heart skipped. Someone was in trouble. Without hesitation, she pulled on her boots, grabbed her thickest coat and gloves, and stepped into the storm. Inside the SUV, the Parker family was panicking. David Parker was a construction supervisor from Tennessee, and he had taken his wife, Erin, and their 8-year-old son Liam to visit his parents for the holidays. They'd taken a shortcut on a back road, misled by a GPS error. The snow came faster than forecasted, and when David tried to turn back, the vehicle skidded and landed awkwardly in a ditch. They had no signal, no food, and barely any gas left. Erin clutched Liam, who was crying softly. "David, what are we going to do?" "I don't know," he said, banging his fist on the steering wheel. "I don't see a single light anywhere." But then, as if heaven had opened a window, they saw a figure slowly approaching through the snow. At first, she looked like a ghost from an old Southern tale, small, stooped, bundled in layers. But as she got closer, her presence grew larger than the storm itself. Mabel knocked on the window with her cane. David rolled it down cautiously. "Y'all need some help?" she asked, her voice strong, clear, and carrying the warmth of a Sunday church choir. David hesitated. "Our car's stuck, we can't get a signal. We don't know where we are." "You're on Cold Springs Road," Mabel replied. "About 3 miles from the main highway. You won't make it anywhere in this. Come with me. I'll keep you warm and fed until it clears." Erin looked at her husband, unsure. They hadn't expected to be saved by an elderly black woman in the middle of nowhere. But Mabel's eyes, they held something rare. Safety. Kindness. Wisdom. And David knew better than to question that. Mabel's home was modest. Warm, worn down, and filled with the scent of cinnamon and old wood. She brought them inside, fed them chicken stew that had been simmering since morning, and gave Liam a quilt and a place near the fire. The boy finally stopped crying. "I haven't had soup like this in years," David said, surprised at the depth of flavor. "Did you grow up around here?" Mabel chuckled. "All my life. This house has seen every kind of storm, but it's the people that pass through who bring the real stories." That night, as the wind howled and snow beat the windows, the Parkers learned about Mabel's life, how she had once been a nurse, working during the height of the civil rights era. She had faced discrimination, hardship, and the loss of her only son to a senseless act of violence 30 years ago. Yet she had never grown bitter. "I figured," Mabel said quietly, "if I let hatred into my heart, I'd lose what was left of me." Her words settled over the room like the snow outside, soft, quiet, and impossible to ignore. The storm lasted 3 days. In that time, something shifted between the four of them. Erin helped Mabel tidy up the kitchen and shared stories about teaching 3rd grade. David chopped wood from Mabel's backyard and fixed the back porch step she hadn't used in years. Liam took to Mabel like she was his grandmother, asking questions about everything from her antique radio to her hand-sewn dolls. Mabel found herself laughing more than she had in years. On the final morning, when the snow finally let up and the roads were cleared by emergency crews, the Parkers packed up to leave. Erin hugged Mabel tightly. "You saved our lives," she whispered. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already did," Mabel smiled, brushing a tear from Erin's cheek. "You gave me a reason to keep this old house warm." David lingered. "Do you have family around?" "No one left," she said, simply. "Well, now you do." 2 months later, Mabel heard the knock again. It was a sunny spring day, the flowers just beginning to bloom in the field behind her house. She opened the door to find a team of contractors unloading wood, tools, and a new mailbox with her name in fresh paint. David stood at the front with a grin. "Hope you don't mind. We thought your place could use a little love." They rebuilt her roof, painted her porch, and installed new insulation. Erin brought groceries and invited her to stay with them in Nashville during next winter. Liam brought a framed photo of the 4 of them from that stormy weekend. Mabel sat on her rocking chair, watching them all laugh and work in the yard. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone. She felt chosen. A year later, the Parkers officially made her part of their family. She spent holidays with them, attended Liam's school concerts, and even traveled for the first time in a decade, on a plane no less. At one charity event organized by Erin's school, Mabel was invited to speak. She stood at the podium, hands trembling, eyes misty. "Kindness," she said, "don't care what color your skin is, what church you go to, or what street you live on. It's the one language we all understand. And it don't cost a thing, but it can save everything." The room gave her a standing ovation. Epilogue. Years later, after Mabel passed peacefully in her sleep at age 91, the Parkers established a scholarship fund in her name for nursing students from underserved communities. Her story made local headlines, then national ones. A woman who once lived alone in a creaking house became a symbol of resilience, grace, and the quiet power of goodness. And somewhere, every time the first snow of the season falls,